Start with Mangalachan. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Udapad Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratushe Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Hare Krishna. So, welcome everyone. I hope you all have celebrated Sri Radhashtami yesterday very nicely. So we'll continue with the third canto, 31st chapter, and today we will be discussing verse 17. So this is chapter 31 is about Lord Kapila's instructions on the movements of the living entities. Dhyana dehi विवरे जठराग्निनास्रगाम् विण्मूत्रकूपपतितो भ्रशतप्तदेहा इच्छनेतो विप्सितुं गणयन् स्वमासानम् निर्वासयते कल्पनाधिर्भगवान् कदा नु देयान्यदेहविवरे जठराग्निनास्रगम् विण्मूत्रकूपपतितो भ्रशतप्तदेहा इच्छनेतो विंसतुं गणयन् स्वमासान् निर्वासयते कृपणाधिर्भगवन् कदा नु देहान्यदेहविवरे जठराग्निनास्रगम् विण्मूत्रकूपपतितो भ्रशतप्तदेहा इच्छनेतो विवसितुं गण्यन् स्वमासान् निर्वासयते कृपणधिर्भगवान् कदा नु Devotees, please. निर्वासयते कृपणाधिर्भगवान् कदा नु विण्मूत्रकूपपतितो भ्रशतप्तदेहा Would Mataji's like to join? देहान्यदेहविवरे विण्मूत्रकूपपतितो भ्रशतप्तदेहा इच्छनेतो विवसितुं निर्वास्यते कृपणदे भगवान् कदानु देहि देहान्य देहविवरे विमुद्ररूपपतितो इष्टप्ता देहः इच्छातो विवस्तु निर्वासयते कृपणदे भगवान् कदानु देहि, the embodied soul, anya deha, of another body, vivere, in the abdomen, jathara, of the stomach, agina, by the fire, ashruk, of blood, with, stool, motra, and urine, kopa, in a pool, patita, fallen, brisha, strongly, tapta, scorched, deha, his body, ichan, desiring, ita, from that place, vivasitum, to get out, ganyan, counting, swamasan, his months, nirvasyate, will be released, karpanadhi, person of miserly intelligence, Bhagavan, O Lord, kada, when, no, indeed. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Please repeat. Fallen into a pool of blood, stool and urine within the abdomen of his mother, his own body, scorched by the mother's gastric fire, the embodied soul, anxious to get out, counts his months and prays, O my Lord, when shall I, a wretched soul, be released from this confinement? Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The precarious condition of the living entity within the womb of his mother is described here. On one side of where the child is floating is the heat of gastric fire, and on the other side are urine, stool, blood and discharges. After 7 months, the child, who has regained his consciousness, feels the horrible condition of his existence and prays to the Lord. Counting the months until his release, he becomes greatly anxious to get out of the confinement. The so-called civilized man does not take account of this horrible condition of life, and sometimes, for the purpose of sense gratification, he tries to kill the child by methods of contraception or abortion. Unserious about the horrible condition in the womb, such persons continue in materialism, grossly misusing the chance of the human form of life. The word Kripanadi is significant in this verse. Di means intelligence and Kripana means miserly. Conditioned life is for persons who are of miserly intelligence or who do not properly utilize their intelligence. In the human form of life, the intelligence is developed, and one has to utilize that developed intelligence to get out of the cycle of birth and death. One who does not do so is a miser, just like a person who has immense wealth but does not utilize it, keeping it simply to see. A person who does not actually utilize his human intelligence to get out of the clutches of Maya, the cycle of birth and death, is accepted as miserly. The exact opposite of miserly is Udara, very magnanimous. A Brahma is called Udara because he utilizes his human intelligence for spiritual realization. He uses that intelligence to preach Krishna consciousness for the birth of the public, and therefore he is magnanimous. Let's do a quick recap and overview of the chapter. So, the first few verses from verse 1 to 11, they are about Jiva's growth and suffering in the womb. Then from 12 to 21, they are the prayers of Jiva in the womb of the mother. So we will be covering 17th. And then sufferings outside womb being described from verse 22 to 31. And then from 32 to 42, the effects of bad association. And then understanding birth and death. That's the last section of this chapter from verse 42 to 48. So when I read these verses, it's very fascinating, so interesting to see and know how much detailed the scriptures are and how much advanced they are. They're telling us what the unborn child is doing in the womb. So the unborn child, that Jiva is praying. Because we generally compare, or we hear people comparing. Medical science is so advanced nowadays. But can it still explain what Jiva is thinking inside? No. I don't know whether it will be able to in next millions and billions of years or never be able to explain. But with our scriptures, we see how much detail it's being given. I was at work and one colleague of mine, he came up to me and he was like, hey, you know what, you are my sister. And I was like, okay, because we see, okay, everyone is brother and sister, so I was like, okay, what's next, like that, because that was quite random, someone coming up. I was just filling my water in the kitchen, and so that person could read my mind. He was like, I got my DNA test done, okay, and then he was like, for my last or my previous 3 generations, I know they got nothing to do with India, but my DNA test shows I'm 1% Indian, so I'm your brother. I'm like, oh, okay. And he was like, see how much science has advanced nowadays. And I was thinking, again, that comparison, have we really advanced? But anyways, when we read our scripture, in this 3rd canto, in 17th chapter, we read about Pinda Siddhi, which describes, has the scientific understanding of pregnancy, nicely described. Because in the 17th chapter, 18th verse, it's mentioned about Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. So they were twins, we know. And Hiranyaksha was born first, but he was still considered younger because based on who was being conceived first, it's the older one. Which nowadays we say, oh, you are older than me by 1 minute or 2 minutes. So we see how so in today's verse, for example, we are talking about a Jiva who is in distress and calls out for the Lord. So because the pain is so severe, so excruciating, the Jiva calls out to the Lord, to Krishna, beg for his mercy, recognize his presence, and then surrender. So should we be happy like, oh, even before I was born, I surrendered? No, that surrender is immature. That surrender is out of force. It's because of the pain. Then what's a mature surrender? Mature surrender is when we have the option to not surrender, but we still surrender. So once we take the birth, then we see the pleasures of the world and we become tempted. And then we forget Krishna because of these worldly pleasures. When people are in trouble, they are in some kind of difficulty Different people take shelter of different things. So for example, if a person is in ignorance, that person may take shelter of alcohol, wine, smoking, some violence. But if, for example, a person is in passion, they may take shelter of money. I've got so much wealth. Any problem? Just through the money, it will be resolved. You can buy anything and everything and everyone, with money. If a person is in goodness, they'll take the shelter of knowledge. They'll analyze. How can I deal with it? Okay, what it is exactly. But if a person is in transcendence, that person will take the shelter of Krishna. Shri Krishna, he says, 4 types of people call out to him. And that's described in Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, 16th verse. Chaturvida bhajanti mam, jana sukriti no arjuna, artho jigyasur arthati, jnanija bharat sharva. So Chaturvida, 4 kinds of people. What do they do? Bhajante mam. It's interesting. Krishna is not saying prapadyate or surrender to me. He said bhajante. They worship me. So when they worship, they render devotional service. Then gradually or eventually they come to the point of surrender. So they, at this point he's saying, they bhajante. They worship me. So these people who are in distress, inquisitive, seeker of wealth, seekers of knowledge, so those. And we see examples in scriptures. So Gajendra, for example, he surrendered in distress. Dhruv Maharaj, initially, he wanted a kingdom. So he approached or he started worshipping the Supreme Lord. Jnanis, 4 Kumaras, they had the knowledge about impersonal aspect. Then they moved forward and came closer to Krishna. So Krishna was saying to Arjuna, these 4 types or kinds of people, they worship me. And these people, they do have some sukriti. They are not transcendental, but they are in goodness. So they are in goodness, but they are not in transcendental, they are not pure devotees. But they'll eventually become pure devotees. How will they become pure? When they render the devotional service, they come into contact or the association of devotees. Then they become pure. So worshipping could be with some motives, but by devotion, they get purified. So this is how we advance in our spiritual journey, how we make progress. Like from Kanishta to Madhyama, we start appreciating the devotees. We start appreciating the association with them. Because initially, when we start, it could be because of the culture, because of the family we are in, because of some curiosity, because of prasadam. But with the association, we start to grow. Start appreciating devotees, understand we shouldn't come to Krishna just when we are in trouble or when we need to ask him something, but he's the object of our bhakti, like prema. Because spiritual practice, or we can practice the spiritual life at different levels. I don't know if you have come across, some people say, I don't believe in God, but you might see them doing some rituals or following some traditions or some religious practices, and when you ask them, why are you doing? Because you don't believe in God, so what's all this, And they say, I don't believe in God, I'm starting my new business, I know I can do it, I'm capable of starting my job, I've studied, so much, I've got so and so degrees. But just in case God is there, I don't want, or Devi Devta, or someone is there, I don't want to upset them. So I've been told to do this, so I'm just do this. So out of fear, I don't want to upset them. I don't want them to, punish me for not doing this. That's the only thing. Yeah. So that's one way out of fear. Some people when we say out of desire, I want this. So let me go to God and ask Him. So I grew up in India, so people say Sawa Rupe ka prasad or 11 Rupe ka prasad means 1 rupee and 25 paise or 11 rupees. At that time, like 30-40 years ago, it means you get a decent amount in 11 rupees, 11 rupees. For 2 rupees, you can get the whole loaf of bread. So they say, oh, it's such, you'll get decent prasad. So God give me this, I'll give you prasad. I'll offer you sweets. So out of desire, spiritual practice or spiritual life or devotional, the another level I should rather say is of the devotion is sadhana bhakti, out of duty. I don't feel like chanting today. I'm just not feeling it. But we know it's our duty, so we still chant. So that's the, I've been told where the sadhana bhakti I need to do. So we do at the out of duty. Because it's not spontaneously coming I'm not spontaneously thinking about Krishna, about loving Him. So we do out of duty. And then the next level out of love, which is spontaneous, right? So we understand, as a soul, I'm meant to serve Krishna. I'm meant to render devotional service to Him. So focus is not on me, rather on Krishna. And in 7.19, Krishna talks about people or souls who completely surrender to Him. Bahunam janmante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudevam sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. So bahunam janmana, after many, many lifetimes, jnanavan, person becomes jnanvan. And what does that person do after becoming Jnanvan? Mam prapadyate. So they surrender to me. And why do they surrender to me? Because they understand. What do they understand? Vasudeva sarvamiti. They understand. Vasudeva is everything. There is nothing beyond Him, nothing higher to Him. And Mahatma, such great souls, they are rare. So, durlabha. So, we see the progression from bhajante to prapadyate, from worshipping to the surrender. And it's mentioned it may take several lifetimes depending on the intensity of our bhakti. Some people may do bhakti casually, I do go temple every Janmashtami, so I make sure I take my family, so yeah. But some people, do it seriously, sincerely. So depending on the intensity, how sincerely, how seriously we practice. So Krishna is talking about the serious practice. Because those 4 kinds which we were speaking about from 7.16, Krishna was said, they do have sukriti, some pious credit, some spiritual pious credits. So they may have done some bhakti in past. May not be direct, may be direct, they may not know it's bhakti. So when people don't realize or understand it's bhakti, so agyat sukriti, unknowingly doing some pious devotion activity, which is conducive to bhakti. So someone unintentionally, waters your neighbors, Tulsi Maharani for example, so unknowingly they didn't intend to. I've personally seen, some examples of people doing agyat sukriti. So a couple of years ago, or pre-COVID, I should say, I organized a Diwali culture program at work for about 200 people. So I had a team of 15 people who supported me. And after the program, the team gave me, or they collected some money to buy a gift for me and then also to donate to the temple for Gopinath. I personally know a person who is a local person, elderly person, who doesn't believe in God, atheist, but he still contributed. He was like, oh, it's a token of thank you, appreciation. And so I should, I know it's going to temple because she believes in, so I'll contribute. He did Agyasukriti for Gopinath. He didn't intend to, but he still did. So sometimes we think, oh, do people really do or how do they do? So and when we see them doing, and those scriptures coming to life, we see. So they could be connected or engaged with Krishna, and that Sukriti helps them to bring them to Krishna and then start serving Krishna. So it may take several lifetimes to understand Vasudeva is everything. And once they surrender to Krishna, they become elevated and completely fixed. So that's basically Prapadyate. So someone may say, is it really, or does it take really long and is it difficult? And can I approach, because I know I've got material desires, so can I approach Krishna even though I've got material desires? Or should I wait? No. So ideally, we shouldn't come to Krishna for our material desires, but rather than, as we were speaking about taking shelter of passion or ignorance, we need to start somewhere. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 3rd chapter, verse 10 says, Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udarati tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Akama, one who has transcended all material desires. Sarva kama, one who has material desires. Or moksha kama, who desires liberation. So udarati, a person with broader intelligence. Tivrena, with great force, perform bhakti, devotional service to the Supreme Lord, to the Purusham Param. This verse also talks about intelligence, and we should be, who is Udara, a Brahmana, who uses human intelligence or human life. So, intelligent person, whether they are full of material desires, without any material desires, or they desire liberation, they should still worship Krishna. Because nowadays, when we see people using their intelligence, it's mainly used for fulfilling material desires. Prabhupada said, advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing duration of material existence of a living entity. Means we keep on going in the circle of birth and death. Because advancement means newer and better ways for sense gratification, which will entrap and entangle us. So earlier on in previous days, in older days, if someone is not happy in marriage, they may have some extramarital affairs. But nowadays, all these inappropriate things, images, they are just, readily available on the internet. So just a click away. So people's mind get contaminated. Because if we think about it, internet, it's so complex. To develop internet requires intelligence. Of course, like material intelligence, because you need to have good understanding of applications, softwares, electronics, all those kind of things. But it's being misused. So increasing the duration of our material existence, keeping us entrapped in that cycle where we look for or try to always look for the happiness. So there might be some happiness, but not a lot of happiness. So we say, in movies it's being said, they live happily after, but that's so much of exaggeration, because we understand our body and its capacity is limited. You may say, I saw that yummy food or delicious one. How much can you eat? Seriously, how much can you eat? So if I had money, I'll buy this. But how much can you eat? How much can you enjoy? So we need to understand our body's capacity is limited. We got our own limitations. So this so-called enjoyment is actually our enemy because it traps us. For example, I don't know, you don't find many mice or mouse here, but in India we used to have like the mouse trap. You put the roti, something inside it so that you can trap the mouse. So it's like that, so the mouse would say, oh no, this is cheese, I'll get the cheese. Or with the fish, tried by the bait, or fish thinks, oh, it's delicious food. But didn't know whether, or it's being pulled out and dragged and then put to death. So that minute happiness, that's our enemy, the ultimate enemy of the enjoyer. So we need to use the intelligence, as we read in today's verse as well, purport, to free us from the lust, from the desires. But those desires actually take away or take over our intelligence. So rather than using intelligence to control them, we use intelligence to fulfill them. And that's our problem. Like we are so used to of enjoying intelligently rather than controlling them. So there could be like, are we not meant to enjoy? Shouldn't we enjoy? So two types of enjoyment. Spiritual enjoyment, which enlightens us. And at the bodily level, which is ignorance. We may not always be inclined to have spiritual enjoyment, but we are in the transition. Right? Because sometimes we say, my motivation was good, so that's why I wanted to enjoy, and I'm doing it as Krishna service, but we can't rely at our sadhaka level too much on our intelligence, even though our motivation or motives, intent could be good. Of course, at the functional level, whether I should go to temple by train or by bus or should I walk, like whether I should buy, Apple phone or Samsung. So at functional level, yes, we do use our intelligence, but with the spiritual intelligence, which attracts us towards Krishna, so which comes from Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Because material intelligence is which takes us away from Krishna, not necessarily always bad, but it should be under our spiritual intelligence. Otherwise, our material intelligence will always drag us towards the sense gratification and tell us the better ways of enjoying. Nowadays, we hear, from non-devotees or younger generation, they even compare movies, to Ramayana. In movie, you got a hero, a heroine, a villain. In Ramayana, you got a hero, Sri Ram. You got a villain, Ravan, and you got like Sita Mother. So, but they don't understand. From spiritual perspective, when you are comparing like movies, it's a sense enjoyment, and it's at the bodily level you are talking. So it's not the right comparison. So don't apply your intelligence there, oh, I'm so good, I can, no. There is a significant difference. Sometimes they say, oh, why it's hero? Because whatever he is doing, nowadays even immoral things being considered moral, because they don't actually take the guidance of what's moral, what's not moral from scriptures, rather what they feel like, But even if something, hero does with the consent of the heroine, it's still at the bodily platform, right? So that's illusion. So what we are seeing nowadays, it's quite relative even with morality. Something done with consent seems right, but no, we need to, and that's why it becomes even more important to refer to Guru, Sadhu and Shastra to know what's right, what's wrong. Because when desires or lust empowers us, we may not even feel like, as you said, chanting or coming to temple. Let me just do this, it's fun. Because if we enjoy it too much, then we need to understand it destroys our inclination towards spirituality. It destroys our spiritual knowledge. Because, have you come across people who say, Bhagwan is up there, why to disturb him? God has given me everything, I'm living comfortably here. Why should I go and ask for him? He has given, I'm not greedy. So I'm not going to temple because he has given me everything. I'm happy here, he's happy there, so yeah. So we shouldn't become too much comfortable in what we got. But then the person, oh, you want me to be greedy? No, it's not about greed. You need to understand how long this pleasure would stay. We need to understand, let it be money. It comes and goes, you never know. Our body, for example, it will grow in terms of we'll grow older, we'll die. It'll have diseases, right? So from that perspective, it won't stay forever. Otherwise, what we are saying, a person in jail, I'm getting food and shelter and clothing, everything, it's as good as that. So I'm comfortable in jail, like I don't need to go or come out of the jail. This is how we can compare, like if we become too comfortable in our material life. So it's like, because it's true, prisoners there being given food, shelter and clothing, right? So what's best for us is to start our Krishna consciousness, devotional practice from where we are. The sooner we do, the better it is for us. And for kids, for example, we have some kids sitting here. It's good you start early because then they grow up in a protective culture. They don't get the bad impressions, which can drag them away from Krishna. Even though when bad impressions come, they haunt a person. But Krishna consciousness is so powerful, even if you start late, you still can progress. So it's better but to start early. Otherwise, people always say, I can enjoy myself, I can go for a party or I can go for a movie or beach or picnic or do this, do that, go there, go here. So pleasure driven. Not thinking about others, rather thinking about just me. Where will I get the pleasure? So putting myself first. But we need to also understand, one, we spoke about, it won't last very long. Secondly, we won't get deep satisfaction. We may get some excitement. Yeah, I went to this place, it's amazing, you must go. Yeah, we may get some excitement. But when we sacrifice for something higher than ourselves, then even in this world we get fulfillment. For example, people who lay down their lives for nation, so something higher than them, right? So we may say it's still, we should go beyond the bodily concept, but the point is something higher than yourself would give you more satisfaction than just for yourself. So by living for a cause even higher, you get the deeper fulfillment. And I actually want to share a poem by His Grace Chaitanya Prabhuji. It's about those people who think about themselves. So their hearts are filled with fears. Their minds are pierced by desires. They are on the verge of tears and they say cheers. So their hearts are filled with fears. He was explaining why so. Because they were always saying, okay, I'm going to the party, but am I looking good? Will people, come to me? Or so those kind of fears, they were always like, is it looking good or not good? And their minds are pierced by desires. Because they are always like, I want this, I want that, I want this. They compare my car or their car is better than mine, their house is better than mine, And because their minds are pierced by desires, and because of fear and desires, they are on the verge of tears. But still they say cheers because they don't want the whole world to know that they are sad, right? Because people want themselves to be looked up as someone successful. Yeah, so they want to show to the world, I'm successful. Like with sad face, like no one would basically say, oh, yeah, I don't want anyone to find out I'm a failure. So I'm happy. Yeah, I should. Have you seen people posting their best photos, on Facebook, like, with smile, yes, cheese. But then it's like, oh, okay, whatever, the life goes on. We went on a team lunch, so after lunch, everyone, oh, let's take a team selfie. Everyone was like showing their best face, like, yay, happy, and and once the photo being taken, they're like, oh, I have to go back to work or not. So it's just the show off people do all the time. Yeah. So what we were saying is about the sacrifice. So highest level of sacrifice is for Krishna, for love of Krishna. So the more we sacrifice and the higher the cause is, the greater and the deeper the satisfaction is. And what exactly sacrifice means? Yes, fire sacrifice, yagya, is one form of sacrifice, but sacrifice means, in principle, to give up something little, for something great. And what great we are talking about here is our relationship, our eternal relationship with Krishna, which gives us fulfillment, which is forever, which will never end. So just by giving our these small flickering pleasures of the world, we get our relationship with Krishna. So I'll summarize here what we discussed. So we started speaking with how people, when they are in trouble, they take shelter of different things depending on the mood they are in. We spoke about those 4 people which Krishna spoke about in 7:16 of Bhagavad Gita. That starts from bhajante, starts from worshipping him, and 4 people are people in distress, who desire wealth, seekers of knowledge, seekers of inquisitive, and who search for the absolute truth. But they must have done some sukriti, previously. And by the association of pure devotees, they become pure. And we spoke about 719, which was talking about it may take, depending on the intensity of bhakti, several lifetimes to progress from worshipping Krishna out of the material desires and then loving him. And we also spoke about the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. A person who has got intelligence should approach Krishna regardless of whether that person is full of material desires or no material desires or desire for liberation. And we also spoke about the intelligence in human life, or these days, we see how it's being misused to fulfill material desires and to get the sense gratification, And we shouldn't be too satisfied or complacent, so, comfortable in life that we start life in this material world. Rather, we should, do some austerity in our lives to progress, to get some spiritual intelligence which will enlighten us, which will give us deeper satisfaction, because our focus will be on Krishna rather than on ourselves. So to conclude, we all promised as unborn child, we were praying to Krishna, so let's all together pray to Krishna loudly and chant once the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we will finish here. Thank you for your time and kind attention. Any comments, questions? Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah. So I don't remember Raj, the exact words, but in the same section I read when the child is born, then it's kind of wiped out. So verse number I may not be able to quote, but it's mentioned in the same section. Yes, because this is what we were saying, like it was there before, and but with the so not word by word I'm quoting, but this is what I remember reading from the same section. Uh, the child once born, like uh, whether it was in yesterday, let me just quickly see. I think it was in yesterday's or the 15th was how the child when it's born being wiped out and people actually surrounding the child actually making him go deeper into the ignorance kind of. Yeah. Yes. So this is what I understood. Like it's not because it's immature out of force, rather than out of mature is when you do it willingly. Yes, this is how. Yeah, this is how I understand it. Could be. Yeah. Because he says a Brahmana is called Udara because he utilizes his human intelligence for spiritual realization. He uses that intelligence to preach Krishna consciousness for the benefit of the public, and therefore he is magnanimous. So he's putting that condition like because he's using his Brahmana. Because my understanding with the mood of Prabhupada, he always says it's not by birth, it's by qualities. And that's how, it's like because he's doing, he's considered Udara Brahmana. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Yes, yes, please. Prabhupada. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think he's asking like, is it enough or not enough, even though it's endured? I think that was the question. If I say, yes. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. 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 Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Sir. Yeah. Yes. Please. Yes. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. for sure. Yes, yeah. But the point was not to compare in those days. The point, apologies if it didn't come across that way, but the point was how it's being considered nowadays. That was the point rather than comparison. Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. No, no, that's not to minimize science, yes, for sure. No, not to minimize. It's even Prabhupada, this is how I understand. We don't just say blindly follow. He says science of God, so he uses the word science, yes, yes, yes. Not to minimize, in any sense with the words, or, yeah. Yes, Mataji. Yes, yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing these examples. Really inspiring, and this is when we discuss katha, and if we share these ones, it really helps, and we can see relate to them. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for coming. Yeah, thank you. Any other comments or like yes. Mm. Becoming unconditional. I think my understanding it's every jiva's or every soul's their own journey. So can't because we say yes, devotional service helps in purification, but kripa siddhi, if you get the mercy directly with jogai mazhai, we saw mercy can come from anywhere instantly. So yeah, it would be. I'm not qualified to say when, sorry, Prabhuji, but yeah, we have seen different example in Regari, from the spiritual master. So different examples. Yes, Prabhuji, this is what I'll say. Yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Would anyone like to give this one a go? What's the point of the jumper bag? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, Jay. Would you like to add, bro? Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Hope this answers your question. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for asking. Because, as we see in Srimad Bhagavatam, whenever someone asks a question, so the inquirer, the hearers, the speaker all get the benefit. And seeing children asking questions, getting interested, it's so inspiring. Thank you. Okay, Haripur, let's finish here. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्री श्री राधा गोपीनाथ भगवान की जय, जय गुरु श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gaura.